So what's going on in the Northland? I bet everybody who is still with us is probably interested in wanting to know what's happening in our skies here. So we're going to talk about a couple of older cases, a few new ones. We don't have a lot of new ones, unfortunately, because our CMS was down, so people weren't able to report. Interestingly enough, New Fork, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute, they didn't get very many reports either when our CMS was down. One of the differences with New Fork is they don't do investigations, they just take reports. But there's a few things that happened relatively recently.
What's New Fork?
You're catching me off guard. What does the answer?
The National UFO, yeah, the National UFO Reporting Center. Thank you.
Yes. So West Fargo, North Dakota, back in January at 5:25 in the morning, we had a report where the witness stated the lights looked like they were in a triangle form. It was viewed at night over a residential area. Lights in the clouds with a humming. So this particular one had an image, and I couldn't recall if we showed this to you in January or not. We might have showed it to you, but I'm not sure. So the investigator assigned is Charles, and it's currently in progress because now we can actually work on the case because we have access to that information. So I don't know if you can see it too well in Rapids. It's a pretty dark image, but you can see some lights. This picture, I did alter it in order to ensure the witness's anonymity. There were some homes that you could see in the background, so I did remove the homes. So this is up above the homes as viewed from where this person was taking the image. And so they thought it was very strange. And there is something similar that we see quite often down at Mystic Lake Casino. I'm not sure if that's it, but Charles will give us an update. So Brainerd, back last July, wasn't reported to us until last December, which is pretty common. People don't always report them right away. The witness states he was looking for satellites and the space station when he noticed a satellite-looking light moving from west to east across the entire sky. It didn't move in a straight line like a satellite. Now, this is an excerpt of what his full statement was. So this one was assigned to Bill McNiff, which is the former chief investigator in Minnesota. At least I believe he's former. My understanding is he has since retired from that position. He's been doing it for about 50 years. So he's definitely, he's earned the right to retire from that. But interestingly, he found that this was an unknown UAV, or unknown aerial vehicle is what UAV stands for. So he couldn't figure out what this was that this person saw. McGregor, Minnesota, on September 5th of last year, wasn't reported again until November. The witness stated that they were returning home from a walk and observed a dull metallic-looking orb about the size of a bowling ball fly across an open field and over a road. No sound, wings, or propellers were noted, and it did not change direction or elevation. And the entire sighting lasted about 10 to 15 seconds. Now, our own Jared Nelson, who is my co-director over in Rapids, is the one that investigated this. Jared, do you want to talk about this at all?
If you've ever seen the videos of the UFO over in I think it was Iraq, it was just like around beach ball, silver looking thing that went across the desert, and they're kind of tracking it. It was the same thing that he saw. So I chalked that up as unknown UAV.
Yes, very interesting. It really caught my attention because it was very similar to a report that I had that I actually reported. The only one I've ever reported to MUFON that happened to me and my ex-husband when I was up on the North Shore. Very similar. So we're back in Fargo now last June, or actually June in 22, where a witness stated that they were walking outside and four large orbs They could have been lights or saucers. It was difficult to tell the shape, they said. Appeared and started moving around just above them. Then 3 of the 4 broke off to the right and started swirling around each other in circular formations. So this was reported to us just this past January, and Charles has been assigned to it, and it is currently in process, and we'll update you when he has finished that case. So NUFORC, the National UFO Reporting Center. I was really quite surprised when I was looking for other sightings since our CMS was down and we didn't have a lot of reports. There wasn't also a lot from NUFORC, and NUFORC is usually the other agency people go. Again, they don't do investigations, but they do take reports, so they do have information. So in Minnesota, in January in Pine City, a witness stated they saw 3 large orange orbs flying together that didn't blink or flash. Interesting, because we had kind of a similar case as you just saw in our area as well. It was reported to MUFON. There was a case in Bemidji back in November where the white light moving across the sky did not look like a satellite, and after a couple of minutes it disappeared. And they stated in what they reported that the ISS was not over North America at the time. And in Mountain Iron back in November, a witness stated that a bright white light was observed by 3 people that emitted a high pitch frequency. The interesting thing about that report is that 3 people saw it. So it's unusual for multiple people to see a sighting, but it really is very valuable to us when more than one person has seen it. In North Dakota last September in Taylor, a witness stated a white, while cutting alfalfa on the farm, that they felt they were being watched. They took pictures and noticed a light in the picture, and they believe they had some missing time during that incident. And in Jamestown, sorry about the date there, that's clearly not the correct date, it should be 2023. Speaking of missing time, that's going forward in time, right? A witness states that a star-like light in the sky moved erratically back and forth at different speeds. So unfortunately, with NUFORC, we often don't get a whole lot of information. We certainly don't get witness information. And it's usually just a statement. But it does tell us that stuff is still happening over our heads and our skies. So who here has not heard of the Bemidji Boom? Okay. How about in Rapids? You got a couple of people that haven't heard about it.
Couple people.
So this was all over the news last fall. So last November, there was this loud sonic boom and a bright flash in the Bemidji area. And so it's been kind of referred to as the Bemidji Boom. It was on the news quite a bit for about a day or two, and then nothing. Nobody heard anything. I can't find anything since last November that's really addressed this. So it has some interesting characteristics to it. And I thought it would be a good one to take a look at since it did happen in Northland's area. Unfortunately, the link here is not wanting to do what it needs to do on the bottom. But let's see if I can get the link above it to open. So I'm going to back this up here and see if I can't get it to. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to freeze it at the moment you can see the lights, and you can see some of the lights in here. So one of the things that this tells us, it's not the full light, but you can see where the shadows are. So that gives you a really good idea of where that flash is coming from. And so you can see the shadow here from the building, but what you don't see is any real shadow here. And there's other videos that have a little bit more information where you can kind of pick out the area by the bushes there, and you're not seeing a shadow there going in that direction. So what it looks to be from this video, at least, is that it's almost overhead and slightly behind the home. So that's an important piece. Also, I don't know if you counted the seconds, but between the flash and the boom is about almost 3 seconds, about 2.5, 2 3/4 seconds. So I'm going to try and go back to my presentation. Some of the things that we'll take a look at in an investigation, and specifically something like this, was how far away was the camera from the explosion, right? Because we're hearing the sound on that camera and we're seeing the video. Now, unfortunately, the video is from a security camera, and so we don't know a lot about the specifics of that security camera. And most security cameras, because they store a lot of data, don't take an image very quickly. So you'll have little gaps, and that can distort what you're seeing. But given that the speed of sound is 761 miles per hour, whatever this was, if it was coming through the atmosphere or from space, clearly surpassed the speed of sound, and we heard a sonic boom there. There's some other thoughts on what it could be as well. We can figure out how far away it probably was. And so roughly a half mile away. And that is really, really close. Interestingly, what we don't see is we don't see any movement of that camera or any of the, like the trees, or there's no shaking, right? There were reports that windows rattled and homes shook and some car alarms went off. But unfortunately, I couldn't find any information online that showed that. They were just reports that that happened. So it makes me wonder, was that really a sonic boom from, say, a meteor? So does anybody have any thoughts on what that may have been or may not have been? One of our participants here in Fargo is talking about how there was a lot of thought that that was an insect in the camera, and somebody said, oh, well, it was November. That's no way that that could have been an insect. So he's actually referring to a different video that I wasn't able to get to the link for to come up on here. And it's a video from the airport that shows what looks like a missile or a white light speeding across the screen. And Jared and I both took a look at that. One of the interesting things about that video, and I wish I could have showed it to you, is that the white light stops at the pole. It was warm enough for insects to be out at that particular time. That is a very typical look of insects when looking from a security camera. Maybe we can take a look at aspects and challenges of security camera UFO videos at some point in time, because there's a lot of challenges around that. So in looking at that, because it stops at the pole, it probably was an insect, which is kind of a bummer because it looked really cool, right? It definitely does not explain the boom. And there was a time period, I don't recall offhand now how long it was, with whatever that was at the airport, probably an insect. And it didn't fit the time period of the boom and flash. So there was a discrepancy there as well. But what are people's thoughts on that?
Do you recall what the temperature was in that area when it happened? I don't remember.
I don't. November 12th. I didn't put the time on there. I think it was like 6:30 or 7:30 or something. It was in the evening.
I stand by it's a bug, but that's me.
Yeah, I took a look at it and it definitely seemed like a bug. And they look very unusual on security cameras. And unfortunately, they tend to spend a lot of time by security cameras. Kind of drives me crazy because I get a lot of videos and images sent to me that look really amazing. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry to tell you, this is probably a bug. So my answer to this is I have no idea. I have some thoughts on what it might have been. It was heard over a really large area. It is possible that it was a meteor. There were some scientists that said, you know, it's probably not a meteor. And one of the biggest reasons for that is that there was no damage. So something that would cause that much of a sonic boom with that bright of a flash that close is probably going to do some damage. So I don't know if anybody remembers the meteor that exploded over Russia and about 1,000 people were hurt and caused a lot of damage. I mean, windows were blown out for miles and miles. And when you get something that's that close, you know, it makes me wonder. So that particular one in Russia, I believe, was like 20 some kilometers over the city. So was it a meteor? I don't know. Another way to look at that as well is American Meteor Society. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but you can look up on their fireball logs whether or not there was a fireball reported. So something that big to cause that would have really created a nice fireball. Generally, those are seen over multiple states, and the AMS does a great job of kind of triangulating where it came into the atmosphere at and what direction it was going. But this is one of those cases where we just don't know. Could it have been a UFO? Probably not, but it was something strange that happened in our skies. So bugs could have definitely been flying around in 40-degree weather. So anyhow, does anybody have any questions, comments? All right, well, we'll plan on seeing you guys next month.
Martian soda. Taste Mars, huh? Well, at least I'm not tasting ranch. Not too bad. Why are you still here? Meeting's over. You can go home now. You don't have to hang out here. Just go home already. Jeepers. Richard Dreyfuss, what are you talking about?